Hey folks, and welcome to Let's Talk. This is my show where I sit down with subject matter experts and or people well-versed in a certain topic in tabletop, and we editorialize, give our opinions, and generally discuss the comings, goings, and current hot news. Now, this isn't necessarily as G-rated as the rest of GMG, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. I'm here with comedian Shayne Smith, who has more gaming tattoos than I have ever seen in my entire life, and a rich, full history in the world of wargaming. And you've taken that into your comedy and shit. So you're here to talk to everybody, and me in particular, about, well, how the fuck did that happen? How'd you get into comedy as a guy that liked games and sitting in the basement painting toy soldiers?
You know, I think most people who are into games are pretty funny, right?
Yes, that
sometimes
would be
you're either
unintentionally or intentionally.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're either so socially, like you have the social intelligence of like a badger, or you're very cool and awesome to hang out with. But either way, it's a good time for me. But yeah, I'm just a big nerd. I started young, you know. Lord of the Rings happened.
Yep. 2001, probably, Lord of the Rings.
And you end up, like, I look like I do because I'm way into, you know, metal and hardcore and all these stuff. And then, of course, metal and hardcore go hand in hand with Warhammer.
They do. Yeah. There's actually, I think I was talking about this the other night, where there's a Guar miniature game called Rumble in Antarctica.
Yeah.
Where Dave Brocky and friends fight dinosaurs in Antarctica.
I gotta check that out. That sounds amazing.
It was around the 90s. It's pretty hard to find now, but it's pretty awesome. My buddy Darren at NBC has, I think, a complete set of all of them.
Nice.
It's pretty rad.
But it's hard to even look at, like, a Warhammer miniature without just hearing heavy metal in your head, right? And so I got into it just because of that. And then, you know, 3rd edition or whatever, Tyranids versus Space Marines. And then from then it just snowballed. And then, you know, I look weird, so I couldn't get a job. And then comedy happened instead. And now I'm here, man.
Now you're here. You know what? It's funny because that's the idea that, like, gaming is related to metal, is related to comedy, it's so, like, tied into just people being around each other.
Totally.
To me, like, that's like all of my hobbies, because I also love going to shows. I love metal music. I love actually all kinds of music, and then I love playing games. But it's always, to me, it's just like an excuse to be around people and do something.
Totally.
It's just like it's the anchor that pulls people into a place and gets them to do something.
Yeah. It's all like community-based activities. Mm-hmm. And I guess as a result of being around people is that I wanted to be funny. Yeah. You know, and when I was young, I was one of those guys who didn't have like a growth spurt until they were like 23. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm not even kidding. When I was 23, I grew like 1.5 inches taller and like 2 full shoe sizes. And I went from being 150 pounds to what I am now, which is like 200 some odd. And it was so bad that even though I didn't have insurance, I went to a doctor.
Because you weren't sure what was going on?
Yeah, my family was like, "You're dying." I was like, because I was hurting all the time. I didn't feel good. Like... I was like, well, I never shaved in my whole life. And then I was like having to shave. I was like, what is going on? So that, yeah, it was like, am I a superhero now? Like, what's going on?
Where's Professor Xavier?
Apparently, it's totally normal. Lots of dudes don't, like, finish maturing until their early 20s.
That would be my experience, that we might never actually finish maturing, but physically at least.
Yeah. So, I went and figured that out. But, so, I was a young weirdo.
And you picked up the Battle from McCrag. That was we were just talking about Lieutenant Varys. Your favorite random miniature ever in a starter set.
Yeah,
because that was back when GW would put miniatures in starter sets that didn't have like a purpose.
Yeah,
like he was just kind of an objective. Like, he was there and he was a dude and he had a gun and you were supposed to rescue him, but he didn't have any rules. Like,
didn't he have gene seed? He was like trying to save the gene seed, and then they had the little terrain pieces.
Yeah, the little Mauser, the little Zarlak pits. Yeah, they were hanging out and stuff too. I think that was one of the first times too that you could actually play the game almost like completely out of the box. It didn't have an HQ chest, I can't remember, because it had Tyranid warriors, it had Gene Stealers and Hormigons. That's what it was. They didn't have a leader. You didn't get a leader in the box. You got all kinds of squads and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But you had that cool crash spaceship.
I remember Kill Team was out. Mm-hmm. There's Kill Team was in a thing, and I remember like a bunch of people had like copied it, and that was what we played.
Combat Patrol,
Combat Patrol. We were we couldn't play like full 40K. I mean, there was no room, and like.
Was it your gaming store, your local gaming store?
Well, I lived in a small town, so we had to like travel to a city. So it was a big deal if we went to the city. Then your mom is like going to Walmart or whatever to get groceries for the month.
Right.
And so I lived in a very small town. Like literally, you need supplies to survive. Like some winter months, you were like, we got to get extra because we might not be able to leave town for 2 months. Like if you have a baby, you have to go stay in a hotel and wait for the baby to happen because there's no hospital.
Right.
So very small. Like
town.
why are people living out there? Because of farms. But so we would go to the city and we would like, your mom would go do stuff or whatever, and then it'd be like, I'm gonna go to the game store. Everyone goes and does their own stuff.
Yeah.
So for me back then, it was always record store, game store, finish out the day at the skate park.
So you had like a window of opportunity basically to do all the shit you liked before you had to go back to nowhere and like check it out.
Yeah, so then it was write what you wanted. We would go to the record store, look at all the metal records, you know, and then you had no idea what anything was, and we didn't really have the internet, so you'd pick the most gruesome cover possible.
Whatever the cover was,
whatever looked like Infinite Annihilator does now, you would pick that. And then or like I had like every Hatebreed album, and so you'd grab that, and then we would run over to the game store, and it was like 2 miles away, so then you'd go to the game store and we'd end up hanging out there,
right?
And then you'd finish off
the
skating.
Skate park.
Yeah,
go to the skate park.
But the game store was always good, and then you know, over time, sometimes you'd be at the game store the whole
extra time. Extra time. Yeah, because you watch a game, half or something like that, you get sucked in.
Yeah.
I remember when I was that age, that was like the fascinating thing for me, because for me in the beginning, it was a solo hobby. I didn't know maybe 2 other people that even knew what wargaming was.
Same.
Right? So I knew my best friend's older brother was into wargaming, but he was like 17. I was like 8. So he was just like, fuck off, kid. Like, I'm not going to play games with you, you fucking nerd. And so you when you go to the game store and you encounter these other fucking mutants that know that what that shit is, you're kind of like fascinated by what they're doing. You just get like sucked into it.
Totally. And I would like, I was so focused in on Warhammer and then also historical war games. So I was an ASL guy.
Nice.
And then I found actually there was this is so random. There was an old man, like old man to me. I guess he would have been like 40 or 50, but he had like Axis and Allies and he played like ASL and stuff.
Yep.
And I was like, I found him accidentally. And I was like, oh shit, you play games. And so he would play like war games with me.
The big long like turn-based.
Oh yeah. I remember he had Flame or World in Flames.
World in Flames, yep.
So we set that up and we played it for like 3 years.
Those are the ones where like if you bump the table by accident, your life is fucking over.
Oh yeah, dude.
So I don't think kids today understand that some board games were like, it was like trying to like you see those videos where like there's some important document that's been shredded in like a million pieces, and some person has to like restore it like bit by bit. That was what playing these board games were. There was a board and there was 11,000 pieces of like tiny cardboard that represented your armies and your supplies and all that shit. Holy fuck.
And there's so much, dude. That game was so crazy because like over time it was like me, him, his neighbor, and like some other friends, and like we would all play. Like we would take turns, but like sequentially, like sometimes you'd be gone and someone else would play, and then you'd come back and see how the war is unfolding. Like you would be like, oh, we're gonna like play for a couple hours on Friday, and you haven't played in a while, so you'd have to like read the rule book.
Yeah.
So like the game was so labored that a part of winning it was just like trying to figure out how it worked at all.
Who's winning? We don't know.
And we were kids, so like we were so unconcerned with like good strategy. Like if I played that game now, I would be like online trying to figure out like what the best things to do, and I would like have a plan. But back then we were just like, let's build the biggest air force in the world, and like let's build a battleship that's so big no one can stop it. Unironically, not realizing Japan had also done that, but. Yeah,
that's hilarious. I mean, it's so funny because you really remember that. Like, that's what's awesome with that is like, when I think back to those games, I can remember the people really vividly. I can remember like just even sitting and playing those games. But there's so much of my life that involves like other hobbies or games, like sports and shit like that. They're just a blur.
Oh, totally.
Like a total blur because I wasn't engaged.
Baseball, football, sweat, all of that is a blur. I remember skating because it was always like
getting injured over and over again.
Yeah, and skating is also a thing where it's about how you feel with the people.
Yeah, it's true.
Like there's so many momentous occasions. Skating is the sports equivalent of Mordheim. where you're always going to remember that one weird thing or that one weird guy or that time it just got crazy. Like, it always has. I'm sure other sports have those moments, but I never had those.
Well, it was an adventure. I remember when I was skating when I was a teenager, we would always be like, you have your skateboard, you have your backpack of like just random shit you need for the day, and you'd go for the whole day, just to find a spot.
Yeah.
And if you found a good spot, you didn't get kicked off it. You would stay there all day to like nail one trick.
Totally.
And like, fuck up your ankles, fuck up your hands, you have skinned elbows, like whatever it was.
And then it got cooler when we figured out like we were trying to make our own skate movies. Because then it became like, trying to film stuff. Oh man, those were such good times. I mean, I still go around with my friends. Sometimes I'll meet up with people.
I'll go
and
longboarding
skate.
sometimes. That's what I'll do.
And film stuff. I still beat myself up. I'm trying to do that still. I've got a little bit of time left in these knees.
Yeah, I was gonna say my knees are about 6 years ahead of yours, so it starts to wear off.
But yeah, man. So I did a lot of solo wargaming. And then man, I have so many 2-person Dungeons and Dragons memories.
Yeah, that's right. Where you just rotate DMs. Somebody got to be the adventure, somebody got to be the DM.
Or you would just I would get my little brother and one of his friends and make them play, and I would DM because of course they didn't understand. But I was down with
just
it.
telling a story, right?
But eventually that evolved into like that. I weaved that into comedy because I used to run a show at Comic-Con before I was kicked out. Which is a long story. I roasted people. I made someone mad because I was talking about. I was on a panel about sexuality in comic books, and my general consensus is titty good. Titty good, and I think that your titties have nothing to do with you as a person,
right?
So they're not reflective of anything bad,
right?
And
that didn't go over well.
Some people don't think that. No, they think they're over sexualized or whatever. Anyway, doesn't matter.
I also saw some pictures on your Instagram of your orc outfit from.
Yes, is
that the same one?
That was my last.
That was your last Comic-Con.
Yep.
Where you're the orc who his penis is uncomfortably out.
I was wearing Ewok shorts for my ex-wife made for her own Ewok cosplay for her to be sexy. So on me they were very small, and so I was a barbarian. I was like, these will work. And so I packed my situation into those, and then I was a half orc, and I was like, how do I be a half orc? And so I just painted half my face green.
I saw you like Green Braveheart.
And then this is a random job I used to have. I used to impersonate Deadpool as a job.
Wow, okay.
So for like parties and stuff. And so
like Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, or just Deadpool?
Yeah, Ryan
really?
Reynolds Deadpool.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was wearing the swords from that.
Yeah. If you're gonna go out of Comic-Con, it might as well be something memorable.
So I played. I used to do this thing at Comic-Con. It's not like a new thing. Obviously, Penny Arcade does comedy, Dungeons and Dragons, and a bunch of people have done it. But I did a special thing where I wrote a game that was interactive with the crowd, where like there was only like 4 stats in the whole game, and it was like Obamacare, ninja shit.
Those are your stats?
Strong and like it's like they're just like goofy names for like life, intelligence, strength, and like whatever, and dexterity. And then the classes were like they all had detriments. You had to like roll on a table, and then like if one of your detriments was like your character has an accent, then the audience votes what your accent is, and you have to speak in it the whole game.
That's awesome.
Things like this. So it was audience interactive, and like the paladin had to worship a god, and then we picked a guy in the audience and asked him what he did for a living. So like there was a guy one game that was the god of office supply sales. And so then like when he tried to use paladin powers, we would like have that audience member interact with him and be God. And so we had lots of weird stuff like that.
It sounds like a live action version of Human Occupied Landfill. Did you ever play that game?
No.
Oh man. Okay, so it was you know Vampire the Masquerade?
Yes.
So
big fan.
So White Wolf had a joke studio, and if you want, I will find you a copy because I think I have 2 copies.
Dude, I would love.
And it was called Black Dog Studio, as opposed to White Wolf, and it was just a game they wrote at a diner, hand wrote, and the actual printed copies are all still the handwritten shit they came up with.
Yeah.
And it was called Human Occupied Landfill, or Hole. And you randomly generate all your characters. So first you roll on the chart to see what chart you would roll on, to see what chart where your stats were chart.
Nice.
But like you could accidentally die during character creation by rolling things like Cornholed by God, or like Born Without Thumbs.
Die during character creation? That's amazing.
But it was the same kind of thing where like you would have these like random interactive things, and your characters were just completely over the top. And Yeah, no, I'll find you a copy of Human.
I love it. I absolutely
it's pretty
would like
fantastic.
To check that out.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised that flew under my radar. I'm furious.
That's awesome. So after that, so wargaming as a kid, what did you like? Did it carry with you through teenage? Or did you have a lapse? Because I had a lapse. I lapsed probably between like 15 and 17. Like I still had all my shit, but I was interested in skateboarding and girls and like all, you know, like all the shit that you kind of like lapse out of a hobby into when stuff like takes priority.
So wargaming itself, I lapsed out of wargaming, role playing, and board gaming for, I want to say like a while, like 5 or 7 years. But I did keep up on Black Library stuff. I did, and I always.
It's funny. So did I. It was like and White Dwarf too. It was like a connection.
Totally. And so I loved battle reports. I would always read stuff, and then I also would do this thing where I wouldn't play games, but sometimes I would buy role playing game books, and I still do this to this day. Now it's a sickness. I'll buy board games, read the rule book, and then never play the game.
Yeah,
I do that so often with war
Dude,
games.
look around.
I know, it's wild in here. So I can't tell you how many times I've bought like rule books for no reason, like just because I'm like, I'll imagine that I played this game.
You know what's funny though? I find that reading a good rule book, like, and it's funny because I actually have a problem with some rule books in like war games now, where it's almost like a board game leaflet. It's not a full rule book.
Oh,
I think when I read a rule book, I'm actually transported a bit back to being that kid that like obsessively read every page of the rulebook. You know what I mean?
I'll never play the game in real life, but the 7th Age role-playing game, I read like all those rule books.
Yeah.
I loved it. I literally brought one of the 5th edition Middle-earth books. I'll buy the adventures.
Yep, yeah.
And just read through the adventures as if I'm a DM.
Yep.
And I just love like imagining how it would have gone, reading through the creativity. I mean, I write adventures just for myself as writing exercises now.
Yeah.
I should publish stuff. But
you should talk to the DMs Guild. The DMs Guild does like they do the open source stuff.
Yeah.
You can sell to them too.
And I was like writing a miniatures game for a while that was like so that I could play by myself.
Yeah.
Literally I was writing a game for myself, and my ex-wife at the time was like, why don't you show people this?
Yeah.
You put a ton of work. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I could.
Well,
But
we talked about that earlier, actually, how sometimes you just can't not do things.
Yeah, no,
right?
Totally.
Like you have this like impulse to make something, and it's not important if you show it to somebody or not.
Yeah,
because you did it, you made it, you got it out, of yourself.
Totally. So yeah, I do that all the time. I mean, I write so much that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
But that's like a part of the being a person who's creative for a living. You have to do a lot of like for nothing writing in order to get the for something writing at a higher level.
I think for me too, it's just getting it out of my head to make way for something else.
Exactly.
I'll obsess over something. If I have an idea and I'm turning it over and turning it over and turning it over, and it can be a shit idea. But like if I don't get it out by writing it down or like starting the process of like trying to codify it, I'll never actually put it in front of myself and look at it and go, oh, that's fucking garbage.
Yeah.
And just like have room for like the next idea.
Totally.
Or whatever.
Totally. I know. I should. Writing a comedy war game would be awesome.
Dude, I'd be into that.
Anyway, that's now an idea that's going to be floating around for some time. A comedy role-playing war game. Anyway, I'll have to read that whole
Butter and Wholesomeness?
Yeah.
I'll get you a copy of it.
That sounds fun. But what do we? Oh, so I had a lapse. Yeah. So this is like a weird aside, and it's going to feel like we're going to need me to talk about it more. But so I was a criminal. A professional criminal for like quite a time.
I couldn't see you doing
and
that.
During that time, it was more video games than less
right.
role-playing games. I was also living in living in a place with like 9 other guys often, and just like being a hood rat and doing shitty stuff and just traveling constantly, for work. And so I was out west. So I lived in like Utah, Wyoming, Montana,
right.
Idaho, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas. And
they're easy. It's instant gratification. Turn on play. You get that like hit, but you don't have to work for it.
Totally.
So when you have no time.
Well, I mean, and this is a lot of people don't think about this, but like, of course, criminals are just regular people. So me and my friends would just like, we would have a job to do that night. Like, let's say someone is at a 7-Eleven has been paid a very small sum of money to let us rob them.
Right.
And the people who farm work out to us are like, you got to rob 7-Eleven at Thursday at 8 p.m. when they're going to change the safe over.
Very organized.
The guy knows you're going to show up. He's been given $50 and some meth or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're going to make this much money and you can keep this much and we want the rest. So we would literally be like, well, we are gonna go rob a guy tonight, but let's play World of Warcraft till then. You know what I mean? And like that's totally...
How many rounds of Counter-Strike can we get in before this happens?
Absolutely. That's dude, Modern Warfare back in the day. Oh man, Modern Warfare 2, baby. So yeah, and so we would like hang out and play games and goof off and talk shit as, you know, sketch people do. Yeah. Then we would go do our thing. Then we'd come home and everyone would drink and goof off and talk about how crazy what we just did was.
Right.
As you do, and then it'd be more video games.
Yeah.
So like being a nerd was always like a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
And I was always like motivating my sketchy, dumb friends to like, why don't you guys play these games? Like I can't tell you how many guys I got into World of Warcraft.
That's awesome. Like, I mean, well, imagine for someone who's, you know, like might not have ever been challenged by something like that with like reading and like World of Warcraft is a pretty fucking complicated game.
Oh
like,
yeah,
you have to be able to do math and like there's a lot of like kind of intellectually challenging shit to being good at it.
Yeah,
and all A-type people want to be good at shit, so they're gonna figure it out if they have to.
Of course, we brought our own hood version. This is real. Most like podcasts I do, I wouldn't say something like this, but people here might understand.
Yeah.
We played Call of Duty a ton, and we used to go on when GameBattles.com was still legal.
Right.
You could gamble on it for yourself, and so we would get in these heated matches where we're betting real money, and these guys, we talk trash to these guys, and of course, when you're in the United States, if you're not on the East or West Coast, like the lobbies are trying to match you with people close to you, but there's only so many people in your place, so we were playing these guys, we were talking all this shit, and everything's going pretty poorly. And then they're talking shit to us, and my one friend is like, where do you live? Like, I'll come kill you. As you do in Call of Duty. That's a totally normal thing to say. And then they're just like, I'm in Utah. You wish you could come here. And my friend was like, I fucking live here. I will meet you at this place at this time. And we set up a real life fight. And so these guys, these like bros, I assume that thought we were just going to be like other bros
kids,
or like regular kids that wanted to fight, like teenagers, and they showed up to fight us, and it was like a full biker gang. They were to fight them over Call of Duty. What a wild time to be alive.
Absolutely.
And they didn't end up getting beat up. We ended up like talking it out actually, but they were just like, Jesus, I cannot believe this issue we got ourselves into. To their credit, the fact that they showed up, my friend who's insane, and I was genuinely afraid he was going to beat them up, which would have been no good because they're just guys, who knows. But he was so impressed that they actually showed up to fight. He was like, the fact that you wanted, fact that you wanted to get down means I won't kill you. You watch what you say to people on the internet. It was like a real Jay and Silent Bob moment, you know?
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how'd you get back in then? So what was it that what was the moment where you like unlapsed?
So I got out of crime, and then I traveled abroad for a little bit to like escape essentially and like restart my life and soul search and whatever else. And I was overseas for a while, and then I came back, and immediately I was just like, I had like a new lease on life, and I was like, life's too short. I've almost died a million times. I've almost gone to prison. You know, I had a very rough childhood, and I was just like, I've been through too much not to do exactly what I want always. Which has kind of been my philosophy anyway. Like I was covered in tattoos when I was young just because I wanted to, and I was like, I need to continue the positive parts of that philosophy. Yeah. So I was just like, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to spend all my time playing games, making jokes, and skating or whatever.
Doing shit that makes you happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that since.
That's funny. We've talked about that on here before, is how eventually if you do something because you really, really want to do it, you'll figure out a way to be successful with it.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like it just pulls you along, and you're never tired. You're never pissed off. You're never grinding shit out. I mean, you're still grinding shit out, but like you're never unsatisfied because the result is something that you want.
I'll always say I'll be sad. I'll be miserable. I'll be tired. I'll be beat up. But as long as I'm fulfilled, I'm fine.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So, I mean, fulfillment is the major thing. I'd rather be fulfilled than happy.
Yep.
So and fulfillment is a special type of happiness that's
it's just something you care about.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, which is why I think people like being parents.
Yeah, I like
looking at
Absolutely,
it. I'm like, oh, not for me. But I'm sure if I was a parent, I would then have fulfillment, which would help.
Yeah, I would agree that is definitely the thing that I get the most from my kids, is that feeling of like, holy shit, this was really hard and this was fucking painful and we had to do a whole bunch of stuff to get you there, kid. But now that we're there, I'm like, and you're gonna be able to do it yourself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's just little shit. Even like teach them how to ride a bike, or teach them how to fucking make food, or like the simple shit every day.
And eventually that wargaming.
Yeah, well, they started. I got pictures. I'll put up pictures. They actually started painting last week.
Oh, it's so.
They started
cool.
painting. Cash freaked out. So WizKids is doing a series of pre-painted Generation 1 1980s Transformers.
Really?
And he got, you can get Starscream, Optimus Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee, and I think Soundwave.
That's so
And they're like 5 inches tall. And so they're all primed. I primed them with the contrast primer, and he just contrast painted it, and he did fucking awesome. And he was so happy.
Cool.
And then Kat just went to the D&D figures and picked out every D&D animal that she liked. So she got a unicorn. She got some like, what is it? What are the little baby dragons called? They're like not dragons.
Whelps?
No, they have a name. It's like a pseudo dragons. She got some pseudo dragons and some fairies. And just painted those. And they were both, what was really the fulfilling part of it was that they didn't think they could do something, and then by the time it was over, they could. And they felt like they could. And seeing that like light bulb turn on, that was the part where I was like, oh, because the whole time, apparently they're gonna get fucking pain in their clothes. I'm gonna get fucking trouble. Like, you know what I mean? Like all this shit's gonna go wrong. But then they got through it. It was good. We fucking let them dry, went and got some dinner, and they were super fucking excited that they did it.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Really I love that.
And so, so you decided that was going to be a thing. And so what did you come back to? Like, what did you pick up first?
So Warhammer right away.
Yeah.
Because I never was out. I was always in love with Warhammer. Even when I was like in my wargaming drought, I got Warhammer tattoos.
Yeah.
I was super. I've always been into like the lore.
Space Marine. You got a Space Marine on your arm right there?
A Space Marine, a custom Jewish Space Marine. From a custom chapter, like the first chapter I ever made. I painted them as Ultramarines because they were Ultramarines.
Yep.
And then later I was like, these guys or whatever. Because I was like a Space Wolves guy, and I was like, these rules following nerds. And so then I tried to like custom paint them into something else, and it's like that chapter.
That's awesome. But, you got Ulrich the Slayer on your leg.
I have Ulrich the Slayer. Yeah, my back is a Space Wolf saga, a poem that says, "We are the wolves that stalk the stars." Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I was way into the Warhammer stuff, and I was like, I got to get right back into this, and so I went all in. Right. I think I bought a full Space Wolves army and a full Tau army, and I got like deep into that, and then from there it just like snowballed, and then I was getting into like kitchen table games. I tried to get back into Mordheim. I played that like by myself a ton. You know what I mean? Like where you're just like chilling at home. Like
tell a story. Yeah, put two armies down.
I mean, yeah, you're chilling at home and you just have like your Reichlanders and your vampire counts, and you have like the coffee table made up. Yep. And you're hanging out with your girlfriend, and she's watching like I don't know what is happening right now. Cheer or whatever, or no, what was that one? The singing show, Glee. Yeah. She'll watch Glee, and I would just be like painting or whatever, or just like playing a game, rolling dice, trying to figure the game out so that later when I play with someone, I know all the rules well. Yeah. That's
awesome.
Also, you just like Mordheim is one of those games where it's almost satisfying to like hang out by yourself and play with your models and the terrain you've made because you just want to see like what's going to happen.
It's transportative. Paper. It takes you there. Like that's what I like about games like that, where because I'm a gaming romantic, right? I like the putting it all out on the table and the presentation. So for me, that's why I always play Pantoy Soldiers and Terrain and stuff like that. Yeah. Is because I can like hear the drums in my head. Totally. You know what I mean? Like that to me, it's transportive. And I like board games. I like all the technical playing games too. And I enjoy playing them with my friends. And to me, that's more of a social component. But if I was going to do it by myself, it was just me forever. You know what I mean? I'd be the guy making these like lavish, like everything would have a story. It's a set piece kind of thing. Totally. And then like just my mind would just like get drawn into it.
Oh yeah. As a kid, I always wanted like the Dungeons and Dragons party versus party war game where it was like, you know, a third party of miniatures coming. I mean, kind of like Frostgrave, but like on like or Mordheim on like a way bigger scale. Yeah. Where like you're almost completely out of control of everything. Like balance isn't a part of it. It's just about this big story. Yep. And I was always like, the resources to do that are so ridiculous that it kind of makes it's a barrier to entry, but as I always wanted like that sort of thing.
I always described Frostgrave as if the Fellowship of the Ring met another evil Fellowship of the Ring and they had a fight.
Yeah, I love
you know what I mean? It's like it's two Fellowship of the Rings going at each other. You have your wizard and then all of the minions that are underneath the wizard like doing the jobs and stuff.
When I was a kid, we we made like our own like Mordheim type game where we had like, and I would do it at school. I would spend all day doing it, and I used to have like hundreds of pages of charts. Right. And we used to play what was the role-playing game called? It was like it was based on the Knights of the Round Table game, Hackmaster.
Yeah.
So we used to play Hackmaster, and Hackmaster was like charts on charts on charts. And so we did that, and so like I had like 9,000 charts for playing like Dungeons and Dragons Versus, where like if you hit someone in the arm, then you'd roll on the arm chart, and there was 100 different things, and some of them would lead you to other charts at 100 possibilities.
That was fantasy roleplay. It was critical hits on limb locations and stuff.
Yeah,
Crazy.
so we had tons of that stuff. So like I love that.
Yeah.
I want the like miniatures game that's like 90% charts, and like there's like 1,000 custom magic items they've made. Like that's so absurd,
so crunchy. Yeah, it's like a phone book to try and play the game.
Exactly, but I want it to be like navigatable. So like just D100s, and you know exactly where to open up to, and you're like, okay.
It's funny
I
because
guess apps would help with that.
I think video games have kind of spoiled us for that, right? Because it's just it removes that human frustration of having to find all those rules.
Totally.
And just like layers it, makes it invisible, so you can get all that like hit location damage and crazy shit. But I think there is something like to be said for it in a small scale when it's like one model. Like I would love to see a miniature game that was almost like a kung fu fight in a Bruce Lee movie. It's just two guys fighting, and you have to like script your moves, and like there's like super specific like limb damage and like crazy shit like that happens.
Yeah.
And it's like so crunchy, but you're just fighting like two people against each other.
Did you ever play the Shadowrun miniatures game, but it was action figures? Did you ever see that?
No.
So there was like a Shadowrun miniatures game, and they were like pre-painted action figures, and they were like this big.
Oh, wow.
They were pretty tall, like 6 inches tall, and then they had like a dial, like a HeroClix dial, and inside that dial they had a ton of dice. And so they're different, like the D4 and stuff, and it really was like Dungeons and Dragons Versus. And they had terrain. I don't remember how big the table you're supposed to play on was. It might have been 4x6, which is a big detriment to that. But yeah, and you move these big ass dudes, and it was kind of like the miniature didn't matter as much, but it was like that where it was sort of just like real crunchy, and you had this big visual representation of your guy, and it was more about like the charts and what's happening in the post game.
That's cool.
I love that stuff.
That's super
the post game is my favorite.
Well, it's easy as me to find out the ever afters. What happens after the movie ends?
Oh,
right?
dude,
my favorite part of the 2003 Dawn of the Dead remake that Zack Snyder did is the journey to Zombie Island. It happens in the credits.
Oh,
it's the credit scene where like they cut in, it's all the stuff happening on the boat.
The head in the ice box.
The head in the ice box, and then like they get there and they're like, hello, and then the fucking Down with the Sickness drums start, and you just see the zombies come out, and then it ends. Because that's immensely satisfying when you get the story, but then you get like just that little bit extra, like when the dust settled, what actually happened, like who survived, who walked it off, who was dead, who was alive.
Totally. I love that.
And 40K doesn't have that so much anymore. I remember in the 4th edition 40K rulebook, there was like asymmetrical missions.
Yeah.
So there'd be missions where like you're defending some kind of like chapel in the middle of the table, and then everyone's surrounding you. And they exist in like the narrative missions now, but they don't really exist in like the standard game.
I wish that they would do matched play, which I love, by the way. I love competitive gaming. I want to go to the LVO this next year round and stuff. So I don't want to knock competitive gaming, but also I wish the open play had open play that like built, like characters that could build stats.
Yeah, campaign stat building.
Your army could earn points, and then you could like address those points to different characters and like buy different units or upgrade things.
They had the battle honor system, remember? I think it was in 4th edition, where like you'd earn battle honors for your squads. If they got wiped out completely, you could lose them. But as long as they didn't all die, they would keep them and stuff like that.
And I haven't really played 8th edition very much, so I don't know a lot about how like CPs work and things. But like I wish that I would love for that kind of like persistent type of situation, and they could do it in such a way that you could play against another person who you've never played against, who's not in your campaign, and you'd be like, oh yeah, my army has been through this, and this is this guy, and he has like he's upgraded this way, and then you could like still play against each other.
It's just a resource.
With
it's
your
another
narrative.
magical resource. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but like your army is even more customized on paper as opposed to just physically.
And it's really yours. You know what I mean? Because it's also the experience you've had playing it that make it important, not just the putting it together.
My warlord died or your warlord dies once, and he gets his like arm cut off, and so now he's like down a weapon skill, but he has like this super powerful weapon, so he's extra strength.
Or he gets bionics from his experience, like gets like a bionic arm or some shit like that.
Yeah. And so you're rolling on charts, and you're getting, and so there's like this like awesome crunchy post game that makes the game so much more yours.
Yeah,
we used to do custom stuff like that.
Of course, I think there's millions of people out there still do. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like I don't think that that's gone. I think that the difference is for the young people learning about wargaming now, unless they see it somewhere else, they won't see it in the main publications.
Totally.
Right? So like, it's going to kind of like, it'll be a surprise. I'll have to find it out from someone that's been doing it already. And I really hope that idea of like mixing in some of the like the personalization and the customization stuff comes back in vogue, because right now it's a very indie wargaming thing to do that. Like that whole like do it yourself, books and no miniatures like idea is not really in the main games anymore.
Totally. So yeah, they're more like, they're more chess.
Well, it's here's the pieces, here's exactly what they do, and you only have to build them one way. So it's accessible because you don't have to worry about screwing it up. Like you can't fuck up a Space Marine anymore because they're all plug and play. Like they just go together. Yeah. But at the same time, you're not encouraged to make that Space Marine your own version of a Space Marine, right?
And it sucks because I love that. Yeah. Like the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game, I think is the best new game to come out in a very long time.
Absolutely.
I only played it because I didn't have time to put stuff together. I didn't have time to paint, and you can just buy it and play it right out of the box. And I was like, oh, this rules. So I love that. But I feel like they can exist side by side.
Absolutely.
Especially GW could just, with another, just one like open play progressive rule book, a progressive campaign system, or like a 40K RPG. Yeah. They could be like, you could, just change the points, and it would be so much easier to write because it doesn't need to be balanced.
Yeah, that's something GW does do pretty well. And I think other companies should copy, is just give people more reasons to play with the toys they already have or they want to buy. Kill Team is a great example of that.
Oh, I love that.
Right? Because Kill Team is, here's a reason to buy that one box of guys you wanted to buy that you didn't want to build an army for.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, I always wanted to paint the Genestealer cultists, but I never wanted to paint a whole army of those guys for 40K.
Yeah.
So along comes Kill Team, and I can just paint 10 guys and go and fucking have an adventure with them, and they learn skills and they're special, and all that stuff kind of comes into there. I think more things like that. And I was disappointed by Warcry because it wasn't that. It didn't give me a reason to go and buy one box of that shit that I really liked and put my own kind of mark on it and make it like unique and special.
Yeah, we were all hoping Warcry would be Wartime.
Well, I mean, from the outside, it looked like it. It's ruins and gantries and shit. Yeah, it really looked like it.
I really wish that they would just make a Mordheim rule book and be like, and you can get the models. We have all the models. Yeah. Here you go.
Well, that's the big question mark right now, is what is the Warhammer Old World game going to be? And I think it's just going to be Warhammer Total War. I think they're going to make a miniature version of the video game.
Yeah? You think they're going to have like Epic?
I think it's going to be something like that, yeah. I think it's going to be on square bases. It's going to be regiments. They're going to move around and stuff. But I don't think it's going to be what people think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I think it's going to be closer to a tabletop representation of the video game.
I would imagine they would go the Song of Ice and Fire route.
Yeah.
Where it's like, these are soft plastic, full, you don't make them like, this is a, because they're not going to make a whole new game to not do something very new, right? Yeah,
and they want to tap market because they've got like that's a huge market. Like that, there's people that literally have played that Warhammer Total War game that didn't even know Warhammer was a miniature game.
Oh, totally.
And like for Games Workshop, that's a huge like, hey, there's all these people that know what our brand is, but they're not fucking spending money on toy soldiers. Let's get them over here to spend money on toy soldiers.
I can just hear people being like pre-made, but like as much as I also am with you, and it's just like, damn, I wish they would go the opposite way and get even more unaccessible. But that's Forge World. Yeah, they already do that. Yeah. So I mean, if they, as much as it would be like, come on, you're gonna make all the way easy to play made models, I would buy that game. I'll probably literally own everything they make.
Well, that's the thing is for you, especially because you're traveling, you're on the road, you're doing shows, you live in hotels. You're, and I've talked about this before. You're the classic example of someone who's got an interest and they've got money and they got fun money, disposable income, but you don't have free time.
Totally.
And so for you to get that experience in a nice manageable package where there isn't all this preamble, you don't have to like work up to it and shit.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic thing that companies are doing now. Song of Ice and Fire is doing it. Shadespire did it. Like there's all these games that actually, X-Wing's a great example of that.
Oh, X-Wing. Yeah. Right Armada is my preferred.
Yeah. I like Armada too.
I was hoping Legion would be that.
And I was actually surprised they didn't, because like they had an existing customer base that probably would have been all over that.
It makes no sense too, because Legion is so push fit. Yeah. There's no customization there. So why the fuck am I making this? So you're just having me do work. You're making me do the work that the person who should, like, they literally just took out a step and then they're just like, Games Workshop makes you build them, and it's like, yeah, but I could also customize that model. That's right, I cannot customize this model. You cheeky shits. You just have me doing the work of the guy in the factory. You should have been doing this work.
I would have paid the premium to just have me painted already. Just get them out of the box.
That was something that Dust 1942 did. I bought their premium models.
Yeah, they're really nice actually. I was just playing this past week. We're playing an indie game called Star Breach with all my AT-43 miniatures, which were like beautifully premium.
I missed out on the AT-43 and the, was it Ragnarok? What's
Rackham is the name of the company.
Yeah, I remember that someone was
Confrontation.
Like, they made pre-painted miniatures for a real miniatures game, and they had terrain and stuff, and I was like, that is my shit.
Yeah,
because I paint Warhammer models. I don't want to paint other models.
Yeah.
So like, I love that, man. I would have literally just bought everything. And that's another thing. The only reason I don't own literally every Games Workshop model is because I have to build it, paint it, sand it, make it nice.
It's overwhelming.
Base it. It is overwhelming.
Yeah, you get this sea of plastic.
When A Song of Ice and Fire, I literally own everything. I have it like a comic book membership. Like if something new comes out, they know like, oh, Shayne's going to buy 2 of this.
Yeah.
And so it's like so easy for me to just get that and play that I wish more games would do something like that. You know, I played HeroClix a lot, which is kind of like, but HeroClix is like, it was a little too 2D on the map, a little clumsy. It's not as good. I
think there's games in its family, because it was the original. HeroClix is really like HeroClix, and what was the other one?
It was
the fantasy one.
I played it a ton. What the fuck?
You know what I'm talking about, though, right? Where it was
Heroes of something.
Heroescape?
No, it wasn't Heroescape.
It was
Heroescape
like that,
was on the tiles.
Yeah, it was on the tiles.
I never played that, but it looked cool. Damn.
But is that idea where like they were kind of like the originators of like, let's take toys, soft vinyl toys, and give them some rules to fight each other. And I think since then there's been a lot of collectible miniature games that have come out that have been a bit more crunchy and a bit less of that like, this feels like a toy that's got a reason to buy me.
Man, there are people screaming, watching, and they know exactly what it's called.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I can't either.
It's so dumb because I played it. There was 3 versions of it. The first version was like a measuring war game. I loved that game. My friends all played it, and I never bought it because it was expensive and I was poor, but I played their stuff, and they had like terrain, and they had like castle stuff that had their own dials so you could destroy
Song Blade? No. Oh, shit. Oh, God.
Anyway, yeah, it's over. But they had like a dungeon version where you were adventuring and it was only a couple characters, and they had like chests that had dials and different stuff, and then they had all this 3D terrain you could adventure through. And I remember we like a game store like went out of business, and my friend bought like all the terrain and we had like, we would play that game in this huge like dungeon. It was so like, it was the first time, because we didn't really play on like big 3D maps. We played Warhammer. There's a lot of felt and that kind of stuff. So it was the first time we was like looking down at a table like, holy shit, this is fancy as hell. It was so immersive and awesome. I just remember being like, this rules.
And it's like the coolest D&D setup ever too. It's like, even if you're not going to use it for the game it's designed to be,
so good.
You have an unlimited supply of like pre-painted
Another
D&Ds.
game that bummed me out, because Dungeons and Dragons miniatures were collectible and pre-painted, and I was like, this fucking rules. I want to play with these, but then it was on mats like HeroClix, and I was like, no, sell me really cheap pre-painted terrain that I can also use for war games, but so then I can like run my guys around and do Dungeons and Dragons stuff. You're killing me here, WizKids. You're killing me.
It's really funny how it takes the industry a long time sometimes to figure that shit out, to figure out what a good accessory is that increases the experience of the player. I think that's the difference between like product design and game design. Product design is what can we make for the lowest amount of money that fulfills a need in a game, versus what enhances the experience of the gamer. And one of the best examples I can think of is the D&D monster cards. So there have been monster cards in the past, but Wizards actually making these like index cards of all the monsters in the monster manual.
Yeah.
And what's fucking cool about that is you don't have to carry your books everywhere. If you're a DM, you just carry like 6 cards of whatever's in your adventure. You know what I mean? And you have everything right there. And that's to me the difference between like a quality of life improvement when you're making something, and we have X dollars in the budget to produce this thing that people are going to need, and we'll make it the simplest and less complicated way we have.
I'm also a huge sucker for that stuff. Like I love like Warcry. Even though it wasn't what I wanted, it interested me so much because it was like all these components. Every unit has a card. I fucking love that. They had like the cards to set up, and I've never played it, but like how you just flip and you design the map.
Your mission,
I love all that stuff. It had like a battlefield that you put. I was just like, man, this is all the little fiddly bits. It has tokens. I love that stuff.
It was one of the best complete boxes I think Games Workshop's ever done. You got absolutely everything you needed. You didn't need anything else outside that box to play the game.
I wish Necromunda had more like, you know, that cardboard thing and like
procedural generation and stuff like that. Where you make up as you
it'd
go.
be so cool.
It would be cool as fuck. So where are you at now then? Obviously you're kind of fish and kitchen table games. Like you're living in New York, so you've got like a premium on space, obviously. That's not like a huge commodity in Queens.
I probably could build a 4x6 board and like have it fold and then pull it out and stuff, but I just can't. Also, I don't have anyone to come to my house to play.
Right.
So I don't have any like good friends who play war games. If you're in New York, hit me up.
That's right.
But so I go to the Warhammer shop on 8th Street, and they do play full games, but mostly it's Kill Team and Warcry.
Yeah, because there's show floor mostly.
There's Necromunda too. A lot of people play Necromunda out there. So I'm thinking about getting into Kill Team. There's a very real part of me that's like, you can do every single one. You could get a Kill Team of every army.
You could. You just buy one box from every army, basically.
Fulfill your fantasy of having every army. And then I love the idea of painting every single army.
That'd be cool as hell. That would be a cool, like, I think there's probably 16 or 18 armies in the game. They're like core armies now. You could probably get through it in a year. You know what I mean? Like, like
definitely.
1.5 a month, basically, paint like a squad box for 1.5 a month.
Easy. And then contrast paints.
Yeah.
Man, I love, as soon as those came out, I was like, for moi? Because I'm the guy. I need those.
Yeah.
So it's all kitchen table games for me. I do a lot of board gaming. Like, you know those weird compromises where like I'll play Zombicide Black Plague.
Yeah.
And then
it's enough of a miniature game that I can get drawn into it, and I feel good.
And then I'm short on players constantly. So anything that I can give to someone who can play a fulfilling game, being explained to it. Because I know my game literacy is high. You could probably teach me how to play any game here, and we could have like a fun game, first game.
Yep.
But like most people who aren't game literate will,
they need some help.
Yeah,
they need to warm up to it.
It will not be fun.
What's your favorite board game then that has a miniature component for like teaching someone brand new to board games and stuff?
Oh, it's definitely Zombicide.
Really? I like
so easy.
I like House on Haunted Hill.
House on Haunted Hill is a good
House on Haunted Hill is good because it's got that great storytelling component where it's different every time, and like someone turns evil and you all fucking backstab each other and betray each other. I do like all the Zombicide games, but like for me, it's about drawing people into a story, and I find that one in particular, House on Haunted Hill, where like the little girl turns into the giant flesh monster and tries to eat everything in the world, and you're like, what the fuck is even happening? We have to go blow up the first and burn the house down to kill her, and you're like, this is wargaming. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. I bought the new Lord of the Rings Fantasy Flight board game that has like an app, so I'm excited to see. That could be a new one that's like up there.
That's awesome.
But yeah, man. Let's see. You know what game is the opposite of what I would teach people, but is like my favorite like miniatures board game is Madara. It's shameless plug because I worked on it, but it's also so good.
That's awesome.
Do you know what it is?
No, I've never heard of it before.
So it's like a kind of like a not a spiritual successor, but it's like anime Kingdom Death.
Okay.
But less just like weirdly open-ended and way more story-driven.
Cool.
So it is charts on charts on charts on charts.
Yeah.
Like it's this huge storybook, hundreds of hours of gameplay, and you build your character over time, and there's tons of cards and stuff, and it's got all these tiles, and you build. And so the storyline can go in all these different branching paths, and you have to like make decisions in and out of game, kind of like what's the one game that's really popular everyone plays that's a legacy? Gloomhaven. Yeah. It's like if Gloomhaven and Kingdom Death fucked anime.
Right.
So it's crazy. And then it also has like those like a red reader, so like you have to put it over the text to see what happens next, so you don't spoil anything.
Yeah, so the no spoiler like glasses.
It's a big rule book, but then the storybook is thick.
That's cool. Check it out.
Bitch. Yeah. Check it out. It's a boutique game for sure, but it's really good. I love that game, but that's again, you have to have like dedicated gamers.
Yeah, put some time in.
Game literate people who want to. It basically
it's the Twilight Imperium of these types of games.
Yeah. If you want to play, it's like I want to play Dungeons and Dragons with my friends, but none of us want to run it. Let's see what's gonna happen.
That's awesome.
It's really good.
That's cool as hell.
It does have that like Mordheim like big story, over time people can die, weird shit can go down type stuff.
That's awesome.
But I guess Black Plague, game Risk Legacy was pretty fun.
Yes, Risk Legacy was great because it literally changed the world. You would nuke place and sticker over it. The sea level, you could blow up the moon, the sea level would like go up, and all the sea cities get destroyed.
We played like I played one game with a bunch of non-gamers who were kind of like this is lame or whatever. And then after the first game, I think we got to name some city, and I just named the city like Jack sucks Shayne's balls or whatever, you know. And then he was like, "What the fuck?" And then like
it's on the front. I put it on Sharpie.
Yeah, it immediately like endeared everybody to the like, and like it's so funny that it like brought everyone into and then the game became like a big thing with all of us. And when we finished the game, they were all non-gamers. And when we finished, you know how you like peel the thing and there's a hidden pack inside, and it said "Don't open, burn," and we burned it. We had a party and we burned it. We didn't read it.
Yeah. And it's so funny because what a great like example of people getting invested in something just because a name gets put on it. You know what I mean? Like just because now it's personal. It's like this is now our copy of this game.
And I wasn't even trying to be serious, just like goofing, you know. Of course. So, but I mean, it's so good. I love that.
That's rad.
But
sorry.
So now House on Haunted Hill. I was like, wait, what was your game? And then I was like, oh, okay. What's your game, like a non-game or regular person friendly game that you love, like the crunchiest game that you're like, I wish I could play more,
like play more of a crunchy game. It's funny because I don't tend to stick to those games very well. Because I guess I get bored of them. I don't have a big attention span for crunchy games usually. We just got through playing. Geez, what was it? We played the Battlestar Galactica board game from start to finish, and that's like a pretty simple one. But to me, that was like kind of an accomplishment because it was all non-gamers and they didn't really understand the resource.
It says here I'm a Cylon. What does that mean?
Yeah, and I've sat down. I've had people try and teach me Twilight Imperium. I get so fucking bored. I can't do it.
Okay.
And I've had people try and teach me not Gloomhaven. What's the other one that's like Gloomhaven? It's like almost like a Malifaux style thing where you go through portals and there's different adventures. Shit.
Is it sword and something?
No, it's like it's like burnt or it has like a
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember.
I can't remember it either. It's another one where they bring in tropes like aliens and gremlins and shit are all in it. But we try to get through that one too. The problem is that like I like the idea of those games, but then I'm such a like immersive person. As soon as one of the components fucks up, like instead of having miniatures, they have like cardboard standees for the monsters. I'm just like, I'm out. I don't love this. Now I'm not going to commit to it.
I'll be immersed if it's all cardboard stands, right, or if it's all. But like
you can't mix and match.
Yeah. I get that. I do like the cardboard stands though. I buy all the like Pathfinder cardboard stand things, and then you write your own miniatures game using those.
Absolutely, I'd rather have it than nothing. But for sure. But for me, it's like if it's halfway, if they start with one thing, it's got a really high component quality, and then it kind of devolves once it gets bigger. It's sprawling or whatever. I'm like, I can't do that.
Nothing's worse. The cardboard stand I can almost do. It's when they have like little tokens. Like a flat token with 3D models. You're like, get the fuck out of here, man.
This is 2020. We can't be living like this.
I can't.
This is not how we do it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
At this point, I might as well just imagine all of it.
Well, I mean, and that's to me, it's funny because a lot of miniature games went that. Like War Machine was just circles. You're fighting for circles and squares, and they didn't even put down 2D terrain anymore or 3D terrain anymore. And I was like, then why are you still using miniatures?
Yeah,
what's the point of using if you're half the time you're taking the miniatures off and sticking down a flat base to proxy them? Why are we still using miniatures for these games?
Big hate on I will accrue hate for this, but I do not like War Machine. It's my least favorite game.
Right.
And even saying that, it's still good. I still like it. But as far as games go, it's the
lower preference. Yeah.
Because one, I've very much not liked the people who play never paint their miniatures.
Right.
They're always unpainted, and I would always be like, I would razz my friends who played. I'd be like, why the fuck do you even play this if you're not going to paint your guys? Yeah. You know, there's no story here. You're just basically playing Magic the Gathering, which just has better art anyway. Like, what are you doing? And then I would always be like, this is so dumb. You might as well just be playing with Pogs, like Warhammer Disc Wars.
Yeah.
And then unironically, that's what it became because they were just like, they stopped using 3D terrain because it's easier to use 2D terrain. And
well, I think it lost people like you, right? So I think I think in the beginning, when I first started playing War Machine, Mark 1 and Mark 2, everything was painted. It was just another 40K, and that's what people thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
It was a different way of playing a miniature war game, and it caught on.
40K.
Yeah, exactly. And so everything was painted, and then over time, I think what happened was the select portion of the population of that gaming hobby took the game away from everybody else. And so the people who were playing were like, if I'm not going to get a game against another painted army, I don't want to play anymore. And so they shelved it and it went in the shelf. And it was like a natural selection thing where it became people that were just interested in one part of the hobby, which was playing games.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it was
totally valid.
Yeah, and that's a completely valid hobby. It's just, I think that it happened like it was one of those things like boiling a frog. You know what I mean? You warm it over so he doesn't notice. It's the same kind of idea. They just lost the miniature component to their game over time. Nobody noticed.
My whole thing too is I would be very into War Machine if it did a Song of Ice and Fire thing.
Yeah.
If it was soft plastic, I didn't have to paint it. It came already built, like how the Guild Ball miniatures sometimes do.
Oh, and what's funny,
I would have been all in at that point.
Well, RadQuest is that. RadQuest is a fucking awesome game of Privateer Press, and so is Monster Apocalypse.
Yeah.
It's kitchen table size, plays on a 3x3, and it's just it's a hero-driven arena combat game where you pick what's called an adventuring party, typically, where you have one of every class. You have like a warrior, a spy, a whatever, and then you go and you try and fight each other. And there's like spawn points, and it plays a lot like a Team Fortress kind of game. And it's over in maybe like 20 minutes, and you play like a best of 3.
Oh, I love that.
It's cool as hell, and it still has big chunky War Machine miniatures. And I think it's funny because I think that the company realized we need to make something that's fun. That's not just it's not just trig basically.
Like a beat down which is cool. I love that War Machine is that, but yeah, I wished it was.
Well, when I heard a War Machine player once say to another War Machine player, it was his first game, he was teaching him how to play, and the kid just kicked the shit out of him, and he said, "Well, what did you want? A gift or a lesson?"
And oh my god, that's exactly the type of gamer I'm not a fan of.
What is happening? What is happening?
Yeah, it's like, okay, buddy.
The social message is not inclusive.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I used to play Magic a lot, and
there was a lot of that in Magic too.
I played a ton of Magic over the course of my life, and I was Masters ranked in Arena, and I played a lot of Magic online, and I qualified to play in the limited pool, the Pro Tour of Las Vegas in 2017, and so many players of Magic were just like, "Hey, you have to stop talking like that, or I'm gonna punch you in the face." And they'd be like, "Excuse me, what's happening?" Trying to tell a TO, he's threatening me. It's like, listen, dude, you can't act like that. Yeah. It's gaming. That's right. We're here to have a good time. Chill the fuck out, man. Yeah, I've seen. You see that at local Magic sometimes. Those are Cheeto dust nerds.
Isn't that a great meme where the one flips over the table, or something like that? Yeah.
Which sucks too, because in competitive gaming, I find that I also run into the most socially competent, the most fun, the most type A, the driven, funniest, best guys. But then in competitive gaming at the low rung, you also run into just I will defeat you, and then they're just the worst people, the win at all costs guys.
Yeah, the win at all costs. Well, the people that they're not there for a mutual experience.
Totally.
They're there for their own enjoyment, and to beat you is their enjoyment. They're not there to to me, that the heart of, and then just loops back to what we were talking at the very beginning, where it's a social experience. All gaming is a social contract between two people to have a good time, even at a competitive level.
Yeah.
Because then you're just having a good time trying to outthink each other, but you should still be able to laugh and talk and engage in it.
Absolutely.
Right. And the top players, typically, that's what they're doing.
Exactly.
They're like, oh shit, if this happens, and they're totally talking to each other's moves, and they can all see the fucking ones and zeros, like the Matrix going by, but they're not dicks to each other because they're just on the same page as what they want to accomplish.
And if you're a really good player, then you're having fun, and having fun is even a part of your strategy. Real high level poker players are famous on TV for laughing and goofing and keeping people distracted about what's really going on. And if you're brevity can be a type of bluffing, you know?
Absolutely.
And so there's more to it than just, if you're having a good time, it's always the better competitive way to do something.
Yeah.
It also throws people off. If someone's very nervous and you're really in win at all costs is your complete philosophy, and you're at the final tables of a game and you show up ready to laugh and have a good time, it's it's going to be better. Also, if you're agreeable and you're having a good time, you'll also, when they do something and you're like, hey, you can't re-roll that, buddy.
Yeah.
I appreciate. I appreciate that you want to do this, but I'll have to call the TO or whatever. Everyone has those moments, and that sucks. It's a part of competitive. But if you're having a good time, it's much easier to do that.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you're not having a good time and you're being a dick, and that person's going to be like, I am going to roll this. Call the TO over, and now you're arguing.
Now you're confrontational.
Exactly, and you might lose because they got their way because you weren't being agreeable. There's
you didn't have a social contract basically saying we're both going to do our best here.
Exactly.
And we're both going to accept the result.
Totally.
No matter who wins and who loses. And I think it's so funny because that's that translates to fucking everything. Like not just gaming, like that's just ability to be social. Like whether it's getting a job, whether it's fucking telling jokes, like it doesn't matter what it is. If you can try and like have at least a basic connection with other people where nobody's trying to be offended, and you're not trying to feel like, fuck the other person over. Yeah, life is so much fucking easier.
Totally. Oh yeah, so much easier.
So how has this affected your comedy? How has being a gamer affected your comedy? I want to hear just to wrap this up. Like what is the thing that you've probably put into your jokes the most that connects you from gaming?
I mean, well, it's like that. How earlier it was like, skating and punk rock connects you to metal. Metal connects you to Warhammer books. Warhammer books connect you to war. It's like degrees. So gaming, of course, makes you like an internet person. So I'm very like internet literate. I know, I'm on forums and goofing off, and I understand internet culture, which informs my comedy, which informs other things. I mean, gaming, I don't know. That's a really interesting question because gaming affects my whole life. I think that the biggest thing is that so many people hear my comedy and they think like, oh, you have a really positive view, or you're very whimsical about very serious subjects or whatever. And all of that, like, sort of, is whimsy the right word? It's such a dorky word. All that sort of like childlike sense of wonder, like positivity and stuff, all like really stems in fiction, which is gaming for me. Yeah. So like just
I think it gives you empathy. If I having watched your comedy, I think it gives you empathy because you understand the guy at the metal show and you understand the guy in the game store.
Totally.
And you understand the kid, with the backpack full of fireworks and a skateboard. Like, that's to make people laugh. And having seen your shows at your show on Friday, I think that one of the best things that I've seen in your comedy is that you can tell your point of view and then two other people's point of view and have an equal emotional resonance in both of them. Yeah. I think for just having watched you work, you're being a gamer, I think, just hooks you into the way the brains of people around you work. You know what I mean? And that makes you laugh. You laugh.
To peel the curtain of comedy back. Because when you ask me the question in my mind, it's like, how's it informed like my actual material and way I feel about comedy? And that, to say that, it's like, it makes me very jovial and personable and like goofy. Like I just want to have fun, which is all gaming is. Like, it's very just like, I'm a grown man playing with dolls. Right. Let's not take this too seriously. And I love that, like, all bets are off. We're just here to laugh and have a good time because it's what we're doing is so absurd. Yeah. And so I take that into comedy. But your point is more of like a peel the curtain back strategy, which is true, I guess. Gaming has made it so that you have to be able to interact with all sorts of different people and squeeze the fun out of every different type of personality and keep them comfortable while they're with you, forces you into social awkward situations, make you able to read people and empathize.
And you're really good at that, man. Like, I'll be honest, like you are really good at like snap understanding how people are feeling. And I've seen you do it on stage. Like you can read the crowd and like kind of soak up where they're at. And I think that's a bit like you have to spend your life around people doing things to get really good at that. That's a practice thing.
Totally. Yeah, definitely. I think, you nailed it on the head there. Yeah. And then, and honestly, in gaming, like I said, just like the whole never taking yourself too seriously, always just being like, having a good time, walking the line between being very serious and caring so much about something that's so silly and also being self-aware that it's silly, but knowing like, I mean, truly, honestly, without gaming, my mental health as a child especially plummets and who knows what happens. Right. I mean, even with fiction and gaming and all these support systems I'd built for myself, I still went down a horrible path. Right. Who knows how much more worse it would have been if I had been like,
if you have like a rich
truly alone, if I felt truly alone, like without Leman Russ and Ulrich the Slayer and Legolas and Tyrion and all these other characters that like really, when I was in these weird times of my life alone, who knows how much worse it could be. So by walking the very, this is a serious business, and I'm a grown man with dolls, and marrying those two things has informed my comedy greatly.
That's awesome.
Cool,
man.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, I'm so happy to be here.
This was super cool. You guys can check out his website, and you can see some of Shayne's comedy, and of course see his local bookings and go see him because we had a great time. It was a fucking awesome show, and it is worth a watch. So big thanks for watching. We'll see you next time for more Let's Talk. Till then, I'm Ash. This is Shayne. Happy wargaming.